I'm going to take you through all the different ways to connect and then show you how you control that content and interact with your colleagues to have a much more engaging meeting. So let's start with a pretty common way to connect. If I'm an occasional user and I don't have the Solstice client already installed, I can come in with a Windows laptop like this ThinkPad here and just do the Windows K for Miracast. And then I look for the display name here that's been named by my IT team, Adams Peak Conference. And I click that guy, and I'm already connected. So now I've got my laptop on this screen, as you can see, and I can page around this content. If I don't have Miracast or a Windows laptop, and I come in with Chrome or maybe a Linux laptop, I can connect just using a browser. So if I open a browser in View, all I need to do is type in the DNS name or the IP address of the display. So that's 10.0.21.245 in this case. And you'll see I get a Welcome to Adams Peak Conference in the web page already. And immediately I can click Launch in Browser, both a Miracast feed and a Chromebook on the screen at the same time. So both of those feeds are really interesting, easy to do. How about iPads or OS X laptops? This is another way to share natively. So I've got this iPad here, or swipe down, I can just tap the familiar screen mirroring, and Adams Peak Conference shows up in that as well. I tap that, and now we've got an iPad in the session. So that's a lot of data on the screen that allows me to share content from a mobile device as I walk into the room, which I personally think is really where the future lies, with effective, ad hoc, fast, rapid-fire meetings. Okay, so I've gone through all of those. What about, content sources that aren't compute sources? Like maybe I want to share we have a game development company that wants to look at what happens with the PlayStation. Do we have a PlayStation client? No, but you do have an HDMI input on the front of that pod. So if you come in and you've got a set-top box or a document camera or a gaming platform that you want to get on that screen, plug it in traditionally into the HDMI input, and it will become what we call one of these posts on the display. So now, so that's a lot of ways to get content on the screen without a client, our own client. But what are the advantages of our own client? There's a lot of advantages to it. We are not here to tell you how to get your content to a screen. My job is to make sure that when you come to a meeting, it's effective and easy for you to get started, for you not to be passing the cable around, for you to get content from any platform onto the screen, regardless of what you need to do, and to make it highly performant. Now, if you do that a few times, we're going to remind you to download our client directly from the box. And that's really key, because if you have the client, there's a lot of advantages. I want to show you those. When a user has the client, you can see I have a little icon up in my system tray, and if all I have to do is tap that, and I can see all the displays around me and what I've used recently. You'll notice something's interesting here, that it already shows that there are 4 users connected to Adams Peak Conference, which is an interesting way to find open conference rooms. So if I tap Adams Peak Conference, I'm already in. You can see there are 3 ways to share: desktop, app window sharing, and media files. So there's some advantages here. App window sharing is great. If I tap that app window and I tap Slack, Slack's window goes up there and my email alerts and everything else, although you can see I have a very cluttered desktop, I'm not having to be embarrassed by how cluttered my desktop is in a meeting. But if I tap media file, for example, which is a great option, I can browse to any media file on disk without having to open it first to stream it. And now I've posted a media file. So we've got the share panel in the client. If I go to the layout controller, I can see every post that's been published, regardless of the source it came from, even if it's native Miracast or iOS mirroring. And I can do things like rearrange that content by dragging it to different positions, like so. So if I wanted to keep the video in full screen on one of my displays and I have 3 in a grid, because we're going to get to it, or maybe my team treats that as a parking screen, it's up to them, I'll move it into there. If I want content out of view completely, I just drag it off screen like so, and it goes into what we call the dock. And if I bring it back, it's back in view. So it's really intuitive drag and drop UI for control, and it's very, very simple to do. If I double tap, I can put something in full screen like that and put it back where it came from, so that you can have a dialogue as though you're doing paper on a table, interacting simultaneously. Of course, we have a moderator mode to control that if somebody wants to be a moderator in a meeting, but typically what I see is that you do that often as a team through social convention. So I want to also show you what happens with our app on a mobile device. So I've got a phone here, and it's the exact same user interface that I just experienced there with share and control, but I've also got a little ink button which allows me to point at the screen with my native device. This is a very interesting sort of contactless AV approach to being able to point or annotate without having to approach the screen. It's more engaging. If I slide that ink button up, I'm able to annotate the screen, and then it will allow me to fade. So if I said, you know what, I'm not a big fan of this segment of our background screen in the browser, we should maybe redo that, or what about replacing it and putting it on this side of the screen over here? I can do that with this phone. Okay, so a bit of a whirlwind tour from all the devices together. I hope you understand that this is an incredibly flexible platform for the modern meeting. It's also really inclusive because every device that comes in, every user that comes in now has an expectation that they can share content with their colleagues in a meaningful way.